Lisa Carter stood in chains before the Galactic Council. The massive chamber stretched high above her head, with walls made of dark metal. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows looking down at her. Most of them were reptilian Vextai, with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. Their leader, Chancellor Mordak, sat on the highest throne. His black scales gleamed under the bright lights. Lisa kept her back straight and her chin up. She had been a captain in the Earth Defense Force for 12 years. She fought in 3 wars and saved countless human lives. But now she was here because she spoke the truth about the Council's lies. Lisa Carter of Earth. Chancellor Mordak's voice echoed through the chamber. You stand accused of spreading false information about this council. You have violated the peace treaty between Earth and the Galactic Alliance. Lisa looked directly at him. I told humans the truth about how you steal our resources and treat us like slaves. That's not a crime. That's my duty. The council members hissed and clicked their tongues. Some of them stood up and pointed at her with clawed fingers. Chancellor Mordak raised one hand, and they all went silent. The evidence is clear, he said. You organized illegal meetings. You shared classified documents. You encouraged humans to rebel against lawful authority. For these crimes you will be exiled to planet Kepler 442c. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. Every human knew about Kepler 442c. It was where the Council sent people to die. The planet was a wasteland covered in poison dust and radiation storms. No one had ever survived there for more than a few weeks. You might as well just shoot me now, Lisa said. At least that would be honest. Chancellor Mordak smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. Exile gives you a chance to live. What you do with that chance is up to you. The trial was over in less than an hour. Lisa was dragged to a holding cell where she waited for 3 days. On the 4th day, 2 guards came to get her. They walked her through long metal corridors to a landing bay. A small transport ship waited. There, with its engines already running, the pilot was a human man with gray hair and tired eyes. His name was Jake Morrison, and he had been flying Council transport ships for 20 years. He helped Lisa into the passenger compartment without saying a word. The ship lifted off and headed into space. Lisa watched through a small window as the Council station grew smaller behind them. She had never expected to leave it alive, but now she wished they had just killed her quickly. How long will it take to reach Kepler 442c? She asked Jake. About 6 days, he said. Look, I know what you did back there. You tried to help our people. That took guts. Lisa studied his face. Are you going to report me for talking? Jake shook his head. The Council already thinks you're dead. What's the point? He paused for a moment, then continued. I brought some extra supplies. They're hidden in the cargo bay. Food tablets, water purification pills, a plasma rifle with 2 energy cells, and some basic tools. Why would you risk that? Because someone needs to stand up to those reptile bastards. If I can't do it myself, at least I can help someone who tried. Lisa felt a small spark of hope for the first time in weeks. Thank you. They flew through space for 6 days. Jake told her everything he knew about Kepler 442c. The planet had been home to an alien race called the Kephara about 300 years ago. They had built cities and advanced technology. Then one day they all vanished. The Council claimed they died from a plague, but Jake had heard different stories from other pilots. Some say the Council wiped them out as a test, Jake said on the 5th day. They wanted to see if they could completely destroy a whole species without anyone noticing. Do you believe that? I've been flying people to die on that rock for 10 years. Political prisoners, rebels, anyone who asks too many questions. The Council tells everyone they're being relocated to start new colonies. But I've never brought supplies for a colony. Just enough food and water for a few weeks. On the 6th day they reached Kepler 442c. The planet looked like a giant, rust-colored ball floating in the black of space. Its thin atmosphere glowed with a sickly yellow light. Lisa could see massive dust storms swirling across the surface. "The drop pod is automated," Jake explained as he helped her into the small escape craft. "It will take you down to the surface and provide basic shelter for a few days. After that, you're on your own." He sealed the hatch and gave her a small salute through the window. Lisa felt the pod separate from the transport ship. She watched Jake's ship disappear as the pod fell. Toward the planet, the entry into the atmosphere was rough. The pod shook and rattled as it cut through the thin air. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. The automated systems were failing one by one. Lisa grabbed onto her safety harness as the pod spun out of control. She crashed hard into the rocky surface. The impact threw her against the wall, and she tasted blood in her mouth. Smoke filled the small compartment, and sparks flew from broken wires. Lisa hit the emergency release and kicked open the hatch dot. The first thing that hit her was the smell. The air reeked of metal and sulfur. Each breath burned her throat and made her eyes water. She pulled on the breathing mask from her emergency kit and immediately felt better. The landscape around her looked like hell. Red rocks stretched to the horizon under a yellow sky. The ground was covered with fine dust that swirled in the constant wind. In the distance, she could see the ruins of ancient buildings half buried in sand. Lisa checked her supplies. The crash had damaged most of the pod systems, but the basic life support still worked. She had enough water for 2 weeks and food for about the same time. The plasma rifle Jake had hidden for her was intact with both energy cells undamaged. Spent the rest of the first day making the crashed pod into a proper shelter. She sealed the hull breaches with emergency patches and set up the air recycler. The small fusion battery would give her power for about a month if she was careful. As night fell, the temperature dropped fast. Lisa huddled inside the pod and listened to the wind howling outside. Strange sounds echoed across the wasteland. She could hear metal creaking and grinding in the distance. Sometimes there were other noises that almost sounded like voices. She thought about Jake's words about the Cathara. If they had built cities here, then maybe some of their technology still worked. Maybe there were supplies or weapons hidden in those ruins. She would have to explore in the morning. Lisa checked the plasma rifle one more time before she tried to sleep. The energy display showed both cells were fully charged. She had 40 shots total before the weapon became useless. She hoped it would be enough for whatever was out there in the dark. The wind kept blowing all night long. Lisa drifted in and out of sleep, listening to the strange sounds of the dead planet. She dreamed of Earth and green trees and blue skies. When she woke up, the yellow sun was rising over the red rocks. She ate a small breakfast of protein-based and recycled water. Then she sealed up the pod and stepped outside. The ruins were about 2 kilometers away, across flat, rocky ground. She shouldered her pack and started walking. Lisa Carter had been sent here to die, but she was still alive, and she had work to do. The walk to the ruins took Lisa 3 hours. The rocky ground was uneven and covered with loose stones that shifted under her feet. The thin air made her breathe hard, even with the mask on. By the time she reached the first building, she was sweating. Inside her suit, the Cathara ruins were bigger than they looked from a distance. Tall spires made of some kind of dark metal rose up from the ground like broken teeth. Most of the buildings were half buried under centuries of dust, but Lisa could see doorways and windows in the parts that were still visible. She found an entrance that was mostly clear of debris. The door had rotted away long ago, leaving just an empty frame. Lisa stepped inside and turned on her flashlight. The beam revealed a large room with walls covered in strange symbols. The floor was made of smooth stone that had once been polished but was now covered with dust. Lisa walked deeper into the building. Her footsteps echoed in the empty halls. Some rooms contained the remains of furniture or machinery, but everything was broken and covered with rust. She found what might have been a kitchen with stone counters and metal pipes running along the walls. In the basement she discovered something interesting. A section of the floor was made of different stone than the rest. When she brushed away the dust, she could see that it was actually a hatch with metal hinges. She tried to lift it, but the metal was corroded and wouldn't move. Lisa went back to her pod to get tools. She spent the afternoon working on the hatch with a crowbar and metal cutting torch. The work was slow and difficult in the thin air. She had to take breaks every few minutes to rest and drink water. Finally, the hatch came free with a loud crack. Lisa shined her light down into the opening. Stone steps led down into darkness. The air that came up from below smelled different than the surface air. It was cleaner somehow and not as dry. She climbed down the steps carefully. The underground chamber was much larger than the room above. Her flashlight beam revealed walls lined with metal panels and strange devices that looked like they might once have been computers. Most importantly, there was a small pool of clear water in the center of the room. Lisa tested the water with her chemical detector. It was clean and safe to drink. This was exactly what she needed. The water recycler in her pod would only last a few more weeks, but this underground spring seemed to flow from somewhere deeper in the rock. She was filling her water bottles when she heard a sound from above. It was a low humming noise, like electricity running through wires. Lisa grabbed her rifle and climbed back up the steps. Outside the building, she could see lights moving across the sky. 3 silver objects flew overhead, about 50 meters up. They were shaped like teardrops with no visible engines or wings. As Lisa watched, they circled back toward her position. She ran for cover behind a pile of rubble. The objects landed in the open ground near the ruins. They were about the size of small cars with smooth metal surfaces. Panels opened on their sides and mechanical arms extended outward. Each arm ended in different tools, including what looked like weapons. Lisa recognized them from her military training. They were hunter drones designed to track and kill targets. The Vextai used them for cleanup operations when they wanted to eliminate people quietly. Someone had programmed these drones to patrol the planet and make sure no exiles survived. One of the drones moved toward the building she had been exploring. Sensors on its front end swept back and forth, scanning for life signs. Lisa stayed hidden behind the rocks and tried not to breathe too loudly. The drone found her footprints in the dust. It followed the trail to the building entrance and disappeared. Inside, Lisa heard it moving around in the rooms below. She knew it would find the open hatch and follow her trail to the underground chamber. She had to act fast. Lisa aimed her plasma rifle at the second drone and fired. The energy bolt hit its center mass and blew a hole through its hull. Sparks flew and smoke poured out as it crashed to the ground. The other 2 drones immediately turned toward her position. Weapon ports opened on their sides, and red laser beams swept across the rocks where she was hiding. Lisa rolled to new cover as the lasers cut through stone like it was paper. She fired at the 3rd drone but missed. The bolt passed over its hull and hit the ground behind it. The drone rose into the air and fired a missile at her hiding spot. Lisa threw herself flat as the explosion showered her with rock fragments. The first drone came back out of the building. Now she was facing 2 enemies and only had 36 shots left. Lisa waited until both drones were close together, then fired at the ground between them. The plasma bolt hit a large boulder and shattered it into flying pieces. One chunk of rock smashed into the hovering drone and sent it spinning out of control. It crashed into the side of a building and exploded in a ball of fire. The last drone tried to retreat, but Lisa put 2 more shots into it before it could get away. When the smoke cleared, all 3 drones were destroyed. Lisa walked over to examine the wreckage. The metal was unlike anything she had seen before. It was incredibly light, but seemed almost indestructible except where her plasma bolts had hit it. She spent the next hour salvaging useful parts from the drones. Their power cells were still intact and could be adapted to work with her equipment. More importantly, she found their control circuits and memory cores. If she could figure out how they worked, she might be able to reprogram other drones she encountered. Lisa carried the salvaged parts back to her pod as the sun was setting. She had learned 3 important things today. First, there was clean water in the underground chambers. Second, the Cathara had built an extensive network of tunnels and hidden rooms. Third, the Council had left hunter drones to kill anyone who survived the initial exile. She worked late into the night, studying the drone components by the light of her small work lamp. The technology was advanced, but not impossible to understand. The memory cores contained navigation data for the entire planet, including locations of other drone patrols and hidden facilities. Over the next 2 weeks, Lisa established a routine. During the day, she explored more of the Cathara ruins and mapped the underground tunnel system. At night, she worked on understanding the drone technology and improving her shelter. She found many useful things in the ruins. Solar collectors that still worked after 300 years. Food storage containers with emergency rations that were still edible. Most importantly, she discovered what had been the main computer center for the entire city. The Cathara computers were built into the walls themselves. Lisa managed to activate one of the terminals using power cells from the destroyed drones. The screen filled with alien text and symbols, but she could see images mixed in with the words. The images told a story. They showed the Cathara as tall, thin beings with gray skin and large eyes. They had built beautiful cities and developed incredible technology. Then the images changed to show Vextai warships arriving in the sky. What followed was systematic destruction. The Vextai didn't just conquer the Cathara planet. They hunted down every single member of the species and killed them. Lisa watched. Recordings of entire cities being burned and families being murdered in their homes. The final images showed a small group of Cathara sealing themselves into deep underground bunkers. They left behind hidden weapons and technology caches for anyone who might someday oppose the Vextai. The computer showed Lisa a map of these hidden locations scattered across the planet. She realized she was not just fighting for her own survival anymore. The Council had committed genocide against the Cathara, and they were still committing murder by sending exiles here to die. Someone needed to make them pay for their crimes. Lisa began planning. She had found water and shelter. She had weapons and the beginnings of understanding Cathara technology. Most importantly, she had learned that the Council's cruelty went far beyond what she had imagined. But she was still just one person on a dead planet. She needed help if she was going to do anything more than just survive. Lisa activated the communication system in her pod and began broadcasting on emergency frequencies. "This is Captain Lisa Carter, calling any human survivors on Kepler 442c, she said into the microphone. "I am alive, and I have found shelter and supplies. If anyone can hear this message, follow my signal. We can survive here if we work together." She sent the message every hour for 3 days. On the 4th day, she got an answer. The voice on the radio was weak and full of static, but Lisa could hear the desperation in it. "This is Danny Rodriguez. I'm trapped in a canyon about 15 kilometers south of the main ruins. 3 hunter drones have me pinned down, and my weapon is almost out of power. Lisa grabbed her rifle and supply pack. "Hold on, Danny. I'm coming to get you." She had been on Kepler 442c for 6 weeks now and knew the terrain well. The canyon Danny mentioned was part of an old riverbed it cut through. The Rocky Plains. It would take her 3 hours to reach him on foot, but she had a better idea. 2 days earlier, Lisa had found a Kethara vehicle in one of the underground garages. It looked like a metal sled with no wheels or engines, but when she connected drone power cell to its control system, the vehicle lifted off the ground and hovered silently. The Kethara had built it to travel over rough terrain using some kind of magnetic field. Lisa loaded her supplies onto the floating sled and headed south toward the canyon. The vehicle moved much faster than walking and made no noise that would alert the hunter drones. She reached Danny's position in less than an hour. The canyon was narrow with steep walls on both sides. At the bottom, Lisa could see a crashed escape pod similar to her own. 3 hunter drones circled overhead, while a 4th had landed near the wreckage. Red laser beams swept back and forth across the canyon floor. Danny was hiding behind a large boulder about 50 meters from his pod. He was a young man with dark hair and mechanic's overalls. His plasma rifle was nearly empty, and he looked exhausted from days of running and hiding. Lisa positioned her sled on the canyon rim directly above the grounded hunter drone. She dropped 2 grenades made from drone power cells rigged to explode. The first grenade destroyed the grounded drone instantly. The second created a cloud of dust and smoke that confused the flying drones. "Danny, run for the north wall," Lisa shouted down into the canyon. "I'll cover you." She fired her rifle at the nearest flying drone and hit it in the sensor array. A machine spun out of control and crashed into the canyon wall. Danny sprinted across the open ground as Lisa engaged the remaining 2 drones. The battle lasted only a few minutes. Lisa had learned to fight the hunter drones by studying their behavior patterns and weaknesses. She destroyed both remaining drones with careful shots to their power systems. Danny climbed up the canyon wall using handholds Lisa had marked with her laser. When he reached the top, he was breathing hard but smiling. "I thought I was dead for." "Sure. How did you survive here so long?" "I learned to use their own technology against them," Lisa said. "Come on. We need to get back to base before more drones show up." They loaded Danny's salvage supplies onto the hover sled and returned to Lisa's shelter in the ruins. Danny was amazed by what she had accomplished. The crashed pod had been expanded with Kethara building materials. Solar collectors provided power for lights and equipment. The underground water source had been connected to a purification system. "This is incredible," Danny said as Lisa showed him around the base. "You've turned this death trap into a real settlement." "It's just the beginning," Lisa replied. "Look at this." She led him to the computer terminal where Kethara historical records were displayed. Danny watched the images of the genocide with growing anger. Like Lisa, he had believed the Council's lies about the Kethara dying from disease. "Those bastards murdered an entire species," Danny said. "And now they're doing the same thing to us, one person at a time." "Not if I can help it," Lisa said. "The Kethara left weapons and technology hidden across this planet. If we can find enough survivors, we might be able to fight back." Over the next week, Danny proved his worth. He was an excellent mechanic who could repair and improve almost any kind of technology. He fixed the hover sled's control system so it could carry more weight and travel faster. He also built better weapons using parts from destroyed Hunter. Drones. Their 3rd team member arrived 12 days later. Amy Johnson had been a communications officer for the Galactic Council until she discovered records of the secret exile program. She had tried to expose the truth and been sentenced to death on Kepler 442c. Like the others. Amy brought valuable intelligence about Council operations. She knew how their communication networks worked and had memorized security codes for several military systems. More importantly, she had managed to build a powerful radio transmitter before her pod crashed. "I've been monitoring Council communications," Amy told them. "They're worried about this planet. 3 supply ships have gone missing in this sector, and they can't figure out why." Lisa smiled. "Those weren't supply ships. They were hunter drone carriers. I've been destroying them when they try to land. With 3 people working together, they could accomplish much more." Lisa organized them into a proper military unit with herself as commander. Danny became their chief engineer, and Amy handled intelligence and communications. They expanded the base by connecting several underground chambers with tunnels. Each person had their own living space, plus workshops for different types of work. They established regular patrol routes to watch for new survivors and hunter drone activities. More people arrived over the following weeks. First came Robert Hayes, a former Earth Defense Force sergeant who had been exiled for refusing to follow an illegal order. Then Carol White, a scientist who had been caught stealing medical supplies for human refugees. By the end of the second month, they had 8 survivors living in what Lisa had started calling New Austin Dot. Each new person brought different skills and knowledge. Robert helped Lisa train the others in military tactics and weapons handling. Carol set up a medical station and laboratory for analyzing Cathara technology. They were becoming a real community instead of just desperate individuals trying to survive. Lisa established rules and procedures for their growing settlement. Everyone had specific duties and responsibilities. They shared all resources equally and made important decisions by group vote. Most importantly, everyone learned to fight. Because the hunter drones were becoming more aggressive, the Council had noticed that too. Many exile ships were disappearing without explanation. They started sending larger drone squadrons with better weapons and sensors. Lisa's people had to work harder to stay hidden and strike quickly when they attacked. During the 3rd month, they made their most important discovery yet. While exploring a deep tunnel system, Amy found a sealed chamber that had been hidden for 3 centuries. Inside were dozens of Cathara weapons that looked like they had been made yesterday. The weapons were far more advanced than anything the Council used. Energy rifles that never ran out of power. Armor that was lighter than cloth, but stronger than steel. Personal shields that could stop laser beams and explosives. Best of all, there were vehicles, including small fighter craft that could operate in space. The Cathara knew this day would come, Lisa said as she examined the ancient weapons. They prepared for someone to continue their fight. With better equipment, Lisa's people could take bigger risks. They started actively hunting hunter drones, instead of just defending against them. They rescued more survivors and brought them back to New Austin. By the 4th month, they had 18 people and controlled most of the northern continent. Lisa knew their success wouldn't go unnoticed forever. Amy's monitoring of Council communications revealed growing concern about the Kepler situation. Military leaders were demanding action to solve the problem once and for all. "They're planning something big," Amy reported during one of their evening briefings. "I've intercepted references to a cleanup operation with multiple warships." Lisa looked around the room at her people. They had come here to die, but instead they had built something worth defending. New Austin had become humanity's first independent colony in the galaxy. The question was whether they could keep it. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. "Maybe 2 weeks before they arrive," Amy said. "They're mobilizing a battle fleet with at least 10 ships." Lisa stood up and walked to the wall where they had mounted. A flag showing 18 stars on a blue field. Each star represented one of their people. "Then we better get ready for war." The room fell silent as everyone realized what she meant. They were no longer just surviving on a dead planet. They were about to declare independence from the Galactic Council and defend their new home against an entire invasion fleet. "Are we Really going to fight the whole council? Danny asked. Lisa looked at each of her people in turn. She saw former soldiers and engineers and scientists who had been sent here to die. Instead, they had chosen to live and build something better than what they left behind. Yes, she said, we're going to fight. And we're going to win. The Vextai warship Death's Claw arrived at Kepler 442c exactly 2 weeks after Amy's warning. Lisa watched it approach through the stolen sensors they had installed on the highest ruins. The ship was massive, with black hole plating and weapon ports along its sides. It carried 50 elite Vextai warriors and enough firepower to level a city. They think they're coming to clean up a few desperate refugees, Lisa said to her assembled team. Let's show them how wrong they are. New Austin now had 23 residents, including 5 new arrivals who had been rescued just days before. Lisa had organized them into 3 squads with specific roles. Robert Hayes led the assault team with the best fighters. Carol White commanded the support squad with engineers and medics. Amy Johnson ran intelligence and communications from there. Command Center. Lisa herself would lead the special operations team using the most advanced Cathara equipment they had found. Her squad included Danny Rodriguez and 3 other volunteers who had trained with the alien technology for weeks. The Death's Claw landed in the flat area south of the ruins where previous hunter drone carriers had touched down. Landing ramps extended from its belly, and armored figures began marching out in formation. Lisa counted 47 Vextai soldiers, plus several officers with fancier armor. She activated her communication system and spoke directly to the Vextai commander. Attention, Death's Claw. This is Captain Lisa Carter of the Free Human Colony of New Austin. You are trespassing on sovereign human territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came back full of hissing laughter. Human female, you will surrender immediately for execution. Your pathetic resistance ends today. I don't think so, Lisa replied. You're about to learn why humans don't stay dead when you want us to. The battle began at dawn. The Vextai formed a standard assault formation and advanced toward the ruins expecting to fight desperate civilians with improvised weapons. Instead, they walked into a carefully planned ambush. Robert's assault team hit them from the left, flanked using Cathara energy weapons that cut through Vextai armor like paper. The reptilian soldiers scattered in confusion as their shields failed and their weapons proved useless against human tactics they had never encountered. Lisa's special operations team attacked from underground using the tunnel system the Cathara had built. They emerged behind enemy lines and destroyed the Death's Claw's landing craft with explosive charges. Now the Vextai were stranded on the planet with no way to escape or call for help. The fighting lasted 3 hours, but felt like minutes to Lisa. Her people moved through the ruins like ghosts using passages and hiding spots they had prepared. Over months of careful planning. Every time the Vextai thought they had humans cornered, the defenders would disappear and attack from a different direction. Annie's engineering squad used the planet's environment as a weapon. When a dust storm rolled in from the east, they triggered charges that filled the air with metallic particles. The Vextai sensors went blind while human forces, wearing protective gear, continued fighting with perfect coordination. By noon, half the Vextai force was dead or wounded. Their commander Zektar found himself trapped in a circle of ruins with only 12 soldiers left alive. Lisa approached under a flag of truce, carrying her Cathara energy rifle. Surrender now, and I'll let you live, she called out. Commander. Zektar raised his weapon and fired at her. The plasma bolt hit Lisa's personal shield and bounced harmlessly into the sky. She calmly aimed her rifle and put an energy beam through his shoulder. The Vextai commander collapsed screaming. Anyone else want to try? Lisa asked the remaining soldiers. They threw down their weapons and raised their hands. Lisa had her. People secure the prisoners while she questioned Commander Zektar. The information she extracted from him confirmed her worst. Fears about the Council's crimes. Kepler-442c was just one of dozens of execution worlds scattered across the galaxy. The Council had been using them for over 200 years to eliminate political opponents and troublesome species. Thousands of beings had died on these planets, while the Council told the galaxy they were establishing new colonies. How many worlds? Lisa demanded as Carol White treated the commander's wound. 47, Zektar hissed through his pain. Every species that opposes the Council dies on a death world. That is the natural order. Lisa felt cold rage building in her chest. The genocide of the Cathara had been just the beginning. The Council had systematically murdered countless innocent beings for centuries. While pretending to promote peace and cooperation, she walked to the communication center where Amy was monitoring galactic frequencies. Can you tap into the main Council communication network? With the Death's Claws equipment, I can reach anyone in the galaxy, Amy replied. What do you want to do? Lisa made the decision that changed everything. She was going to tell the galaxy the truth about the Galactic Council's crimes. She was going to expose their lies and show everyone what really happened to political dissidents and rebellious species. Amy worked for 6 hours connecting the Death's Claws communication system to the ancient Cathara network they had discovered. When she finished, they had access to every major communication channel in the galaxy, including emergency broadcast systems. Lisa stood before the main transmitter as Amy began the broadcast. She knew this message would reach billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. She also knew it would make New Austin the most wanted target in the galaxy. Citizens of the galaxy, she began. My name is Captain Lisa Carter of the human species. I am speaking to you from the planet you know as Kepler-442c. Your leaders told you this world was uninhabitable. They lied. She gestured to the screen. Behind her were images from the Cathara historical records played. The galaxy watched as the truth about the ancient genocide was revealed for the first time in 3 centuries. The Galactic Council didn't find an empty planet here. They murdered an entire species called the Cathara to claim this world. Then they turned it into an execution site where they send political prisoners to die. Lisa held up documents they had taken from the Death's Claw. These records show 47 death worlds where the Council has committed genocide against species that oppose their rule. Thousands of beings have been murdered, while you were told they were starting new colonies. The broadcast continued for 20 minutes as Lisa revealed evidence of the Council's crimes. She showed footage of human survivors building New Austin from the ruins of the Sci-Fi civilization. She displayed weapons and technology that proved the Council had been lying about galactic history. Then came the moment that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Lisa walked outside to where a tall pole had been erected next to the main building. 23 stars surrounded a larger central star on a blue field. The flag of New Austin snapped in the wind of the alien world. This is Captain Lisa Carter of the Free Human Colony of New Austin, she said, looking directly into the camera. We claim this planet under human authority and will defend it against all threats. We call upon all free beings in the galaxy to resist the tyranny of the Galactic Council. She paused and looked up at the strange yellow sky of Kepler-442c. Any Council forces approaching this world will be considered an act of war. We have taken 47 prisoners and destroyed an entire Vextai assault force. New Austin stands ready to defend human independence and expose the Council's lies. The broadcast ended, but Amy kept the channel open to monitor responses. Within minutes, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Several species that had been thought extinct for decades revealed they had survivors hidden on remote worlds. Human colonies started declaring independence using New Austin as their inspiration, the galaxy exploded in controversy as beings learned the truth about their leaders. Some species supported the Council and called for New Austin to be destroyed. Others began organizing resistance movements against Vextai rule. Lisa knew there would be consequences for her actions. The Council would send everything they had to crush New Austin and make an example of human resistance. But she also knew they had accomplished something important. The truth was finally spreading across the galaxy. That night, as Lisa walked through the growing settlement, she thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been sent here to die alone and forgotten. Now New Austin was the capital of human independence and the symbol of resistance against Galactic tyranny. Amy found her standing on the observation deck looking up at the stars. "The Council is mobilizing a battle fleet," she reported. "At least 12 ships with over 2,000 troops." Lisa nodded. She had expected this response. "How long do we have?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. They're bringing everything they have." Lisa looked around at the lights of New Austin spreading through the ancient ruins. Her people were down there, working and planning and preparing for the fight of their lives. They had built something worth defending, and they weren't going to give it up without a battle. Then we better make sure we're ready for them. The galaxy changed in the weeks following Lisa's broadcast. Human colonies on 17 worlds declared independence from the Galactic Council. 3 species that had been thought extinct for decades revealed they had survivors hiding on remote planets. The Council's carefully constructed lies were falling apart as beings across the galaxy learned the truth about their leaders. Mordak responded with fury and desperation. He assembled the largest battle fleet in Council history to destroy New Austin and crush human resistance once and for all. 12 warships carrying over 2,000 elite troops prepared to jump to Kepler 442c. The Chancellor himself would command the fleet from his flagship Eternal. Dominion. Lisa watched the enemy ships approach through the sensors Amy had installed throughout the ruins. The fleet was massive, with enough firepower to turn the entire planet into molten rock. But Lisa and her people had been preparing for this moment since the day they first raised their flag. Austin now had 37 human residents plus an unexpected ally that had emerged from the deep underground bunkers. The surviving Cathara had finally revealed themselves after 3 centuries of hiding. War singer Velfara was tall and thin, with gray skin and large dark eyes. She spoke in a musical voice that seemed to echo from multiple directions at once. Her people had been waiting in stasis chambers deep below the surface, hoping someday someone would continue their fight against the Council. "Your courage has awakened us from our long sleep," Velfara told Lisa as they stood in the ancient command center. "The Cathara will fight beside humans to reclaim our murdered world." The Cathara brought weapons and technology that made even their hidden caches look primitive. Energy cannons that could destroy starships from the planet's surface. Fighter craft that moved faster than anything the Council possessed. Most importantly, they brought knowledge of the planet's deepest secrets. Kepler 442c was not just a world with ruins on its surface. The entire planet was a massive weapon system built by the Cathara during their final war against the Council. They had turned their homeworld into a fortress that could defend itself against entire fleets. The systems had been dormant for 3 centuries, waiting for someone to activate them. Lisa divided her forces into 3 groups as the Council fleet entered the system. Robert Hayes would command ground defenses using a mixture of human tactics and Cathara technology. Carol White led the technical team responsible for operating the planet's ancient weapon systems. Lisa herself would pilot one of the recovered Cathara fighters in direct combat against the enemy ships. The battle began at dawn on the 6th month anniversary of Lisa's arrival on Kepler 442c. Chancellor Mordek's fleet approached in standard Council formation, expecting to face desperate refugees with stolen weapons. Instead, they encountered coordinated resistance that had been planned and prepared for months. The first surprise came when the planet's surface opened and massive energy cannons rose from hidden silos. The Kethara had built these weapons to destroy capital ships with single shots. Lisa's people had spent weeks learning to operate them under Valthara's guidance. The lead council ship Righteous Fury exploded in a ball of plasma as three surface cannons fired simultaneously. The blast was so bright it lit up the planet's atmosphere like a second sun. Debris rained down across the northern continent as the massive warship broke apart. Chancellor Mordak's voice echoed across all communication channels. Impossible. That planet has no defenses. Our intelligence said it was just ruins and radiation. Your intelligence was wrong, Lisa replied from the cockpit of her Kethara fighter. Welcome to New Kepler. Population 37 humans and about 50 very angry ghosts. The space battle that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the 6-Hour War. Lisa led a squadron of 12 Kethara fighters against the remaining 11 council ships. The ancient craft moved like nothing the Vextai had ever seen. They could change direction instantly and phase in and out of normal space to avoid enemy fire. Robert's ground teams used the planet's environment as their greatest weapon. When the Council tried to land troops, the humans triggered massive dust storms filled with metallic particles that jammed sensors and communication systems. Vextai soldiers found themselves lost and blind on an alien world, while human defenders struck from every direction. The planet's ancient defense grid activated as the battle intensified. Automated systems that had been dormant for centuries came online and began targeting council ships with weapons that defied understanding. Energy beams that passed through shields like they weren't there. Missiles that could track targets through hyperspace jumps. One by one, the council ships fell. The Merciless disappeared in a flash of light when Carol's team activated a gravity weapon that collapsed it into a singularity. The Iron Fist was torn apart by fighter attacks that hit it from 6 directions simultaneously. The Crusher exploded when ground-based missiles penetrated its reactor core. Chancellor Mordak found himself commanding a battle fleet that was being systematically destroyed by enemies he had underestimated completely. His mighty warships were falling to a combination of human ingenuity and technology that shouldn't exist. All ships retreat, he ordered as his fleet dwindled to 6 vessels. We cannot win this battle. No retreat, Lisa said as her fighter swooped toward his flagship. You came here to commit genocide. Now you get to see what happens when humans fight back. The final phase of the battle was personal. Lisa's fighter engaged the Eternal Dominion in single combat while the remaining council ships tried desperately to escape. The ancient Kethara craft was faster and more maneuverable than anything the Vextai possessed. Lisa used every trick she had learned in her years as a military pilot. She flew through the flagship's weapon fire like it was standing still. Her energy cannons carved through its armor plating and destroyed its engine systems. When Chancellor Mordak tried to ram her fighter, Lisa simply phased out of normal space and reappeared behind his ship. The killing shot came from directly above. Lisa's fighter dove down through the flagship's shields and put an energy beam straight through its command section. Chancellor Mordak died instantly, along with his senior officers. The Eternal Dominion drifted powerless as explosions tore through its hull. The battle ended exactly 6 hours after it began. 12 Council warships had been completely destroyed with 0 survivors. Lisa's forces had lost only 2 people in the fighting. The galaxy watched through hijacked communication systems as the most powerful fleet in Council history was eliminated by a handful of human refugees and their alien allies. Lisa landed her fighter in the expanded spaceport that had been built from salvaged ship components. Her people gathered to welcome her back from the battle that had decided their fate. The flag of New Austin flew proudly over the settlement that had grown from a crashed escape pod into humanity's first independent colony. Amy handed her a data tablet showing the final casualty count. 2,847 confirmed. Kills, she reported. Every council member who participated in the attack, plus support staff and ship crews. Lisa looked at the numbers and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Each death represented justice for the countless innocent beings the council had murdered over the centuries. But she took no pleasure in killing, even though it had been necessary. "Start a memorial wall," she ordered. "List every name and ship. The galaxy needs to know what happens when tyrants try to commit genocide against free people." The memorial was completed 3 days later. It covered an entire wall of the main building with names carved into Kethara metal that would last for millennia. At the top were the words, "In memory of the fallen, they came to murder, they chose to die." The victory at New Austin changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Other species began rising against council rule as they realized the Vextai could be defeated. Human colonies formed an independent federation with New Austin as their capital. The surviving Kethara emerged from hiding on other worlds and began reclaiming their ancient territories. Lisa stood on the observation deck 6 months after her arrival, looking out over the settlement she had built from nothing. New Austin now had over 200 residents as more humans arrived seeking freedom from council oppression. The flag above her head bore 35 stars representing the human survivors, plus a border of Kethara symbols honoring their murdered civilization. The communication system crackled with reports from across the galaxy. The Council's empire was crumbling as more species joined the growing rebellion. Vextai forces were retreating from outer colonies as they tried to protect their core worlds from revolution. "Captain Carter," Amy called from the communications center, "we're receiving surrender offers from 3 council worlds. They want to negotiate independence agreements." Lisa smiled as she watched the sun set over the red landscape that had tried to kill her 6 months ago. She had been sent here to die, alone and forgotten on a dead planet. Instead, she had built humanity's first independent world and sparked a galactic revolution against tyranny.